Hey everybody, it's Dugan Kelley with Kelley Clark. Glad you're here. We have a hot take. This has just came out December 23rd, 2024. This deals with the Corporate Transparency Act. So if you haven't been living under a rock for the last year or so, and you actually own an entity, a limited liability company, a limited partnership, or a corporation, you likely know about the Corporate Transparency Act. It required essentially the filing with FinCEN. FinCEN is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which is a bureau within the United States Department of the Treasury for you to file information related to the entity that you actually own. Well, there's been a series of legal filings and challenges to the constitutionality of the Corporate Transparency Act. And as you know from recent client updates, we advised you that earlier this month, the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Texas issued a nationwide preliminary injunction temporarily blocking all enforcement of the Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA, and implementing regulation. That injunction suspended your obligation to actually file information by the filing deadline for all reporting companies, including the January 1, 2025 deadline. Well, the government appealed the preliminary injunction to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and argued, amongst other things, that a nationwide injunction is an extraordinary remedy that should be stayed pending appeal. Well, on December 23rd, yesterday, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit stayed that nationwide injunction blocking all enforcement of the CTA. The Fifth Circuit's decision effectively reinstates all of the CTA filing deadlines, including the January 1, 2025 filing deadline for reporting companies that were formed before 2024. However, the U.S. Department of Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network announced several short extensions, including delaying the filing deadline, right? So we had an injunction. Now the injunction is being essentially halted, meaning now there's going to be the same obligations that you had pre-injunction you now have, but FinCEN is extending out that reporting deadline essentially for 12 days to January 13th, 2025. Accordingly, all reporting companies, that basically means if you're not exempt, and for most of you that are looking at this, you're not exempt. You have an obligation to actually file your initial beneficial ownership reports, are well advised to immediately resume all of your CTA filing efforts and submit those reports prior to the new deadlines. So let's just talk about a little bit about the Fifth Circuit decision. So after ordering expedited briefing schedule, which is kind of rare in an appeal, which imposed stricter deadlines than those originally requested by the government, the Fifth Circuit granted the government's emergency request. So the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals was not sold on the reason that the lower court said. They weren't sold on the fact of that it infringed on unconstitutionally on privacy grounds, both at the state level for certain states that afford anonymity in the filing of and the formation of companies and limited partnerships. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals was not sold on that privacy argument. So now here are the deadlines. So just to reiterate, the CTA is going back into effect. If you have obligations as a company owner to make those reporting requirements, you need to do so. FinCEN recognizing that reporting companies may need additional time to file their BOI reports given the timing of the recent litigation. They've extended that original filing deadline for reporting companies formed before January 1, 2024 that was going to be due on January 1, 2025, just a few days from now, to January 13th, 2025. And then they have extended the filing deadline for reporting companies that were created or registered in the United States on or after December 3rd, 2024, and before December 23rd, 2024, when this ruling was just handed down, by an additional 21 days from their original filing deadline. So if you just formed a new company and you between December 3rd and December 23rd and you thought, woo, I don't have to file anything because of the injunction. That's not true. You're getting a little bit of a respite. You get an additional 21 days to file that. But it's very important that you understand that the Corporate Transparency Act is back in play. It's super important for you to follow that because FinCEN does have at their disposal the remedies for people that are non-compliant or intentionally non-compliant, and that includes fines and fines up to like $10,000. So you want to be aware of the stick that potentially exists for non-compliance with this. We'll continue to keep you informed if any new developments exist or if it goes to a higher court and then what happens as a result of that. For all of you that are watching this, we hope that you have a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Thanks.